right, so let's keep it real. As soon as you guys saw this video from David, you were like, "Oh man, I bet Progressive Voice is gonna make a video on this," and you were correct. So David posted a video that's titled "Progressives Against Sam Seder and David Pakman," and we're gonna check this out. But basically, he goes after Jimmy Dore's fans. He calls them out, for basically their activities that they're taking part in basically claiming that David Pakman and Sam Seder are not progressives. And so he's basically telling them to stop that because it's very, not only is it not productive, it's counterproductive and it doesn't help the left in any way. So this has a little bit of history as well. If you remember, I think it was back in like January-ish, somewhere around there. David had made a video called something like The Narcissism of Small Differences, where he basically spends the whole video basically saying like, hey, let's not get caught up in all these small differences and divide the left in the process of basically, having these tiny differences. We have to understand that we have really big, we virtually are the same here. Although there were, of course, some pretty big strategy differences, and again, one man's small difference is another man's huge philosophical, difference. So it's kind of tough to gauge there. So he's been kind of trying to do this for a while now. And, as you guys know, there seems to be two camps right now on YouTube, right? There are people who are Sam Seder fans who don't like Jimmy Dore. And then there are the Jimmy Dore fans who don't like David Pakman and Sam Seder. And, I'll give you some of the commonly used catchphrases or, whatever line of attack against David. Usually they call him like a corporate shill, or a common term is a centrist, or something to do with Rachel Maddow and all this stuff. So, it is kind of odd how that whole stuff is going on there. But let's go ahead and check this out.
Things to talk about here and serious things to talk about. There are numerous social media groups and accounts and pages targeting both the David Pakman Show and the Majority Report with Sam Seder, claiming to target us from the left, which have cropped up recently. One such group, this is just an example, okay, just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. One such group is a Facebook group called Progressives Against Sam Seder and David Pakman. And there are some funny things on the page. For example, if you look at the header image, cartoons of Sam and I, a word bubble from Sam saying Joe McCarthy 2020 and me saying yes, please. Then there's another group called Anti-McCarthyism Progressive Unity against Sam Seder and David Pakman. And of course, there are endless Twitter accounts, which I mute when I see them because I don't have time for them, and YouTube comment movements, pylons, which are
So I have to
lately
say
targeting.
that is quite odd that both of those groups have the same header. And by the way, for this profile, that big nose on Sam Seder is pretty yikes, considering that Sam Seder is Jewish. So we all know about that stereotype. So yikes.
When I see them because I don't have time for them, and YouTube comment movements, pylons, which are lately targeting Sam and me from the so-called progressive indie media. But sometimes they're targeting more people too. So sometimes Sam and I will be targeted, including Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, as being part of the problem. Sometimes Kyle is part of the solution, but Sam and I are part of the problem. Or sometimes they will include Tom Hartman as part of the problematic left-wing media, along with Sam and with me. But sometimes Tom Hartman is the right type of progressive. He's on the good side of the line, but Sam and I are on the wrong side of the line. But the point...
Yeah, he's actually right here. So sometimes Kyle Kulinski is right. Sometimes he's not on the right side, according to said people. So, for example, like fans of Jamarl, Jimmy Dore, Nut Gargler, Thomas, I remember they were saying a bunch of stuff of like, oh, Kyle he's too naive, and he's just, he's basically dumb to think that the Democratic Party is salvageable, and that the idea of, reforming the Democratic Party is a feasible plan. And so they were kind of like, oh, Kyle Kulinski is not part of the solution. Tom Hartman is also another one. I remember that some people were pissed at him because, after once the general election hit, there was a lot of a big split that happened, amongst progressives. And so I believe Tom Hartman was more of focusing on we need to take down Trump during that 2016 general. And so a lot of people were angry with him and basically saying like, "Oh, you're not like a real progressive," as they do with a lot of people.
Point here is that who is on which side of the line changes, and it depends hugely on which so-called progressives are drawing that line. And that's not hugely surprising. Now, I'm trying to think of like how to even start with this, because when you see something like this, progressives united against David Pakman and Sam Seder, there are a bunch of obvious questions that we should be asking. Question one is, are these groups really people who are on the left who dislike Sam and who dislike me, or are they right-wing astroturf? That's a question to be asked. Second,
I don't think that they're right wingers. There's really no evidence that would lead to that. Like I don't think there's any, you know, maybe it's a right wing fan of Jimmy Dore who's saying this. That's a possibility, I guess. But I more have a suspicion and a belief and sort of a lead, a hint towards. You know, I feel like it's, one of those loony Jimmy Dore fans. There are a lot of dumb Jimmy Dore fans, virtually all of them, pretty much, or the hardcore fans, I should say. Where people saying like I remember comments from them, where it was like how long until AOC starts saying access to healthcare and Bernie's a sellout to the DNC because he endorsed Hillary Clinton, and somehow every story comes back to the DNC, Hillary Clinton, some Clinton, some variation of those terms. DNC, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Clinton, all of this stuff, right? Obama, it all comes back to this stuff. So I think that it's probably one of those people. Now, is it possible it's a right winger who's a Jimmy Dore fan because he harbors a lot of those people? Yeah, it's possible, but I find it very unlikely to be. I think that it's one of those people who's like a third party purist and does not like the Democratic Party at all, hates all Democrats, etc., etc.
who is it that these so-called progressives support? If Sam and I are the problems, who are the right progressives that should be supported, according to the people who are creating these groups, targeting Sam and targeting me? And
Jimmy Dore, that's who it is. Jimmy Dore, that's the people who it is. It's Jimmy Dore fans who are, essentially there's a war going on between Jimmy Dore fans and Sam Seder and David Pakman fans. Now, there's been a resurgence of Sam Seder fans over the past, year, to where there's now more of a, sort of strong fan base for the Majority Report that didn't exist back when the beef between the two first had begun. But it's Jimmy Dore. That's who they think is the right progressive.
thirdly, what does it mean about the progressive movement that more and more stuff like this type of infighting and targeting is cropping up? So here's the common trends I'm seeing when you look at the anti-David and Sam pages. Number one, many of them have a ton of pro-Jimmy Dore content posted as examples of the right kind of leftism. Okay, so if we look at progressives against Sam Seder and David Pakman, a whole bunch of the posts are Jimmy Dore clips, which I believe is meant to imply that Jimmy's the right kind of progressive and Sam and I are the wrong types of progressive. So right off the bat, you start to get a picture of this anti-Sam and David movement as at least partially a pro-Jimmy Dore movement. Often these pages, and particularly the Twitter accounts, also have a lot of pro-Tulsi Gabbard content. If you don't know Tulsi Gabbard, she is a presidential candidate currently polling about 0.6%, I believe. So
That's a pretty low blow there, David. By the way, he threw that in just to he threw that in there just to do a little low blow at Tulsi. That's pretty low, man.
that's another sort of trend that exists. And then typically, there's a lot of Russiagate denialism that is in a lot of these anti-David, anti-Sam pages, along the lines of, we can't believe anything Mueller says other than when Mueller said no collusion. But all the stuff about obstruction and election interference and WikiLeaks' involvement from the Mueller report, that stuff we don't believe. But we can definitely trust Mueller that Trump did nothing wrong. So I'm not going to go back and attack any particular wing of the left. I'm not going to accuse certain leftists of not really being left, because that would be furthering the problem that these groups are sort of indicating exists. Here's my main point. If the left continues to do this, the left is going to continue to fail on many fronts. And I brought this up on the Joe Rogan program 2 weeks ago, and a bunch of people misunderstood what I was saying. When people come to me and they say, David, what's the real problem with the left? It's not SJWs, okay? It's not campus free speech suppression. It's not toxic identity politics. Those things exist, and they do exist in bits and pieces on the left, and I call them out when I see them. But the real potential problem on the left is defining the left so rigidly that it will fail to accomplish anything major because it will keep out way too many people who share most of our goals. And there's a really good article by Joshua Seitz in.
Okay, so what he's trying to do here is basically he's saying, "Hey guys, stop." And he's specifically talking to Jimmy Dore fans, but I'm assuming he's obviously talking to people who are his fans and Sam Seder's fan, the Majority Report's fans as well. But here's what he's basically trying to say. He's trying to say, hey man, like, stop this line drawing of progressivism and who specifically is progressive and who isn't progressive. And he's saying, we need to stop this because it's very counterproductive, and it leads to a sort of standstill in terms of actually getting things done electorally speaking, electorally as well as once said person gets into office. So that's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to do that. But the thing is that Jimmy Dore fans are really stupid. Not all Jimmy Dore fans, but the hardcore Jimmy Dore fans are really dumb. They just have, low IQ. They basically are just like NPCs that just say DNC, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Obama. Look at this clip from Obama in 2006. Look at this clip of Hillary Clinton from 1997. And it's just like, oh my God, it's just random whataboutism. Yemen. Talking about like a completely unrelated issue, and you like bring up the issue, the very serious and real issue of Yemen, which has nothing to do with the situation at hand. Just rampant whataboutism. But it's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. I mean, I know he's trying here, but listen, man, it's not gonna happen. Jimmy Dore's fans are not gonna, start being, like David Pakman or Sam Seder. They spent like 2-3 years now basically calling David Pakman and Sam Seder centrist corporatist shills. Some people say that various progressive hosts on YouTube are, trying out for MSNBC. They want an MSNBC job. I know they say that about Sam Seder, he's a contributor to MSNBC, so of course he's a sellout, and all this other kind of stuff. So I see what he's trying to do here, but it's not going to happen. Like, it's simply not going to happen. In fact, I wonder if this is going to embolden them. Now, when it comes to the Tulsi cult, there's a pretty seemingly strong Tulsi cult online for some reason. I'm not really sure why it exists either. It's very odd when you have such a superior candidate in Bernie Sanders. But there just seems to be this really weird cult that exists around Tulsi Gabbard online that is definitely very weird, and it doesn't make any sense. Now, I was reading the comments on this video. Some people are like, oh, I bet you that these pages on Facebook are owned and controlled by Russia. Nah, no. I mean, obviously, there's no way to prove that that's not the case, and obviously from me, but the odds of the Russians being like on the lookout for YouTube progressive news channels and trying to sow discord within those YouTube progressive news channels, and so a Facebook page with like 32 likes is owned and controlled by the Kremlin. Nah, get out of here. That's not true. It's a very simple explanation. There are a lot of Jimmy Dore fans who very low IQ, very dumb, and they just really strongly dislike Mr. Pakman and Sam Seder. So it's pretty easily explained by that. Now, I personally have been really drifting away from Jimmy Dore's show. I don't really find any of his content to be very good anymore. And I came to the realization that he's just simply an unintelligent person. And so what I realized suddenly was, oh, when he gets certain things right, it's not because he's being an intelligent person. It's because he's got like this one line of thinking, and that line of thinking is going to hit sometimes. It's going to be right sometimes just by sheer chance. And so that's what he ends up doing. But it's not because he's an intelligent person. It's because sometimes that line of thinking and, DNC, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all this other stuff, you just keep saying it over and over again. It's going to work in certain cases. And so he's not an intelligent person saying anything very intelligent at all. And he admits to that. He calls himself, a late night jack off comedian or whatever. That's what he says himself. So don't take it from me, take it from him. Uh, you know, and I just find his stuff to be really bad. He's also seeming to be pursuing the spot from right wingers of being the lefty that they love. Now, Kyle Kalinske, I think, has been kind of trying to get that for a while too. But Jimmy Dore's taken it and really it's on steroids at this point, to where it's like Kyle usually did it out of principle, and then that was kind of like a benefit for him. But this is more like, yo, I'm gonna say this kind of stuff, like the Vox Mazda stuff. I'm gonna say all this for the purpose of trying to gain right wing fans and be a lovable guy among the right wing. He's been doing that for a while now. Just go on his Joe Rogan appearance. So that's why he remember we did a couple of videos when his fans got pissed off at him for going after Donald Trump. So I actually unsubscribed from his channel after the whole Vox Media debacle that he had, that he deleted and then recovered it again because there was a lot of views to get, and he was woefully uneducated on a topic that he was covering. And I really don't watch his videos anymore. I still get recommended his videos, funny enough, because of all of his weird conspiracy theories about like YouTube trying to like censor him. Like, I'm still getting recommended his garbage videos. But I just find him to be completely, lacking any value whatsoever. Literally nothing. You don't gain anything from watching the Jimmy Dore show. And that's why I personally unsubscribe. But listen, man, I see what David's trying to do here. But I don't think it's going to happen. But definitely let me know your thoughts on this whole situation down below. Curious to hear your thoughts.